Hello and welcome to h2o.inc.edu, your free learning channel. Today I wanted to talk about the sun, its cycle, and I also wanted to talk about Helene of Troy and the story behind it. Why is a tripod such a big fuss even still 2,000 years later? So let's begin with the sun. We have the regular zodiac here of 12-month: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. Because there are 12 houses, if we further divide each house in two, we can fit the 24 letters of the Greek alphabet. Now, in terms of universal division, why is it that we have chosen 60 seconds to a minute and 60 minutes to an hour? Well, it's because 60 is the closest number where 12 standard and decimal system 10 meet. 12 times 5 is 60 minutes, and 6 times 10 is 60 minutes. And also with the Trinity, 3 times 20, which is like the Venetian basis number, equals also 60. The other thing is 12 times 12 equals 144. In the 24-hour period, there is 1,440 minutes. So that 144 reappears as if the Greek had some sort of shortcuts to figure out the heavens. So it's going to be a bit of a tricky video because there's a lot to cover. But the sun was represented by Helios, which I think I have talked about before, that the 7 wise men decided to give the golden tripod to the sun god of Helios. And the thing is, they didn't just meet once, they met twice. Once in Crete and once in Delphi. So that leads me to believe that if you gather the smartest people on earth, it's not just to look at a gold tripod, because it's solid gold, look how beautiful it is, but more of a golden, so it implies it's not necessarily solid gold, and there's a purpose to it, a telos, as they would call it in Greek. And what was the purpose of that? That's what I wonder. And the 7 wise men always discuss about the values of virtues. So maybe they were asking themselves, since Helene of Troy had that tripod, could women have the virtue of intelligence, the virtue of figuring things out? I know I'm not sexist by any means, but I'm talking about ancient days, and the mistake that men have made over thousands of years. So I want to make a quick parenthesis that a tripod most always has a purpose. And so there was a Frenchman by the name of the Père de Foucault, who used the pendulum to figure out that the Earth was spinning on its axis. And you can do that using the simplest of tripod, because tripod is the first symbol of stability. Hold on, I gotta hook it up. It came undone here. I think one of them did. Yeah. Logistics. I wish I had a team to help me out a little bit with this, but we'll have to make do. Okay, so now that we have stability, okay, these are just 3 bent rods of metal that I bent, and I painted them gold just to illustrate the point that if it's just a gold item you're looking at, it's not really much of sense. And you could hang a pendulum from that and it would spin. So I'm looking at the next thing that is a tripod, and that was my drawing painting easel. Okay, and this also has a purpose. If I bring this over here, that should be stable. There we go. If I move this over there, now we can see this is a wheel that aligns a lot of things. So I won't get into too many details of that, but what I wanted to point out was this is a regular astrolabe. The sun is over there, it'll be more visible this way. There we go. And that is used so that you can point the needle to whichever star or planet you're looking at and measure the angle of height of that star, okay? And so all of these are divided by 360 degrees. This one is written in French, but they come in English or whichever with the same 12 signs. And I want to bring us, oh man, those engines. I want to bring us a little bit back in time. This is a book by Professor Jacques-Henri Lavier. It's called L'Uranologie Chinoise. Unfortunately, it only comes in French. But the point of this book is that it shows that in 2256 before Christ, the Chinese emperor Yahoo had ordered his uranologist, the midpoint between astrology and astronomy, to measure the sky to create a very accurate calendar. And back in 2256 before Christ, they measured the sky to be exactly 365 days a year, and the ascension of the sun to be 26,000 years. NASA, with today's equipment, has measured the Earth rotation to be 365.5, little discrepancy of 0.5, and the sun ascension to be 25,500 years. So it's very close. Why am I mentioning this? Because if the Chinese already knew that 2,000 years before Christ, that's before Helene of Troy, I'm half suspecting that a lot of Chinese astrology and science and maybe even the compass were invented a long time ago before we even think it was invented. But we've lost that knowledge as we keep losing knowledge because we dismiss it. So why am I pointing all these things? Is because let's take our easel back and see the controversy over why is it that 7 wise men have to gather from all 4 corners of civilization to discuss a tripod that was once owned by Helene of Troy. Let's try to put ourselves in the skin of Helene of Troy. She was the most beautiful woman of her days. And the thing is, when you're the most beautiful woman and you're courted by princes and kings that in essence have been taught by the best mathematicians and scientists, because let's not forget that people for example, like Alexander the Great, different period, but just to illustrate a point, Alexander the Great was taught by Aristotle himself. So that's how much royalty knew about mathematics and science and all that. They were taught by the very best. So imagine you're Helene of Troy, and as royalty, every other prince is trying to impress you with, fancy clothes of gold everywhere and a gold ring, and somebody offers you a golden tripod. But that one prince is trying to impress you a little bit more. Maybe that one prince is the son of Priam. And Priam was the king of Persia at the midpoint between Greece and China. So he must have known about astrology on both sides. And Helene of Troy spent some time in Egypt too, where they have a different astrology system. So time in Troy, time in Egypt, and time in Sparta. 3 different ways of looking at the same astrology clock and divided in different ways. So if we assume that this is the easel for a wheel that some clever suitor showed her, well, this thing does several things. First, it's around it's 15 minutes to 1 right now. And so if you look, the easel does cast a shadow, and you can adjust that shadow. I'm gonna have to adjust the camera instead to illustrate my points. Now that you have an easel, imagine that you have the knowledge of that Chinese compass, which in essence is really nothing, because the story of the tripod is also linked with a bowl or a cup, but nobody really knows how it ties together. So here is a basic hand-built little bowl with two little handles. I attached a regular string that they could have had in that time, and I used a piece of paper with a needle for a compass. So what I'm going to do is simply string this forgive me over here, and now I'm going to take a little bit of water and pour it in the cup. By putting this needle attached to paper, oh, my papers are flying now. There we go. So by putting this little needle in the bowl, which is right there, we will see that the needle will find the north for us. That's the most ancient way, okay? And as it is adjusting itself, can you see it there? I think so. There you go. So now it's adjusting itself and it's telling me north is this way. So I'm going to adjust that accordingly. Okay, and do you see how the shadow now aligns this way, as if it's telling me it is 1 o'clock? Okay, let's keep going with further explanations of this. Now, in the days of Helene of Troy, they would have had a astrolabe, like I showed earlier, which I seem to have misplaced right here. So suppose that now you have your tripod, you have your compass telling you where north is. Let me readjust right there. And you're taking your astrolabe, which I explained helps you measure the angle, and you stick it here. So now you can measure that. And you have yourself an extra wheel that goes right on the top. So now you have a sense of direction this way, a sense of direction that way to measure time and altitude and so on. And you have your compass that tells you where the magnetic north is. To me, if Helene of Troy, because she was suited by so many men and navigators, people who used things such as a sextant, okay, a sextant is 120 degrees. That means 3 times 120 degrees is a full circle. 3 is the tripod, remember? You have 4 elements, and they all have 3 states. Like air can, when it's heated, expands. When it's cold, it retracts. And when it's neutral, it's stagnant. Water freezes, or is liquid, or is vapor. Earth can be solid, muddy, or sedimentary, like tiny little bits of sand. And fire, well, hot summer, cold in winter, and the warm in the full fall and spring. So it's kind of like in between. So it's also three state of affairs. And so the whole point of that Helene of Troy story is, if Helene of Troy was suited by the smartest people, offering the most beautiful gift because she was the most beautiful woman, then she would have used all those bits of information to maybe come up with such a piece of engineering. And if that piece of engineering was discovered by a woman and not by a man, that would cause a big controversy, because now it was about a debate over which is the most important planet in the sky. And how do we divide time? Is it going to be by Mars? Is it like Alexander the Great, or the Romans, or is it going to be by Jupiter 12 years? And so if this woman had all this information and she threw the golden tripod at sea and fishermen picked it up, it tells me that if fishermen caught it in their net, it floated. So it was probably a wooden item with golden leaf on it. Because you can't pick up conch shell or other things that are at the bottom of the sea with just a net. You have to go in a suit to get that. So I'm thinking maybe Helen of Troy invented this very thing, that is an astrolabe with a sundial, if you put it up, okay? And it also measures, hold on, let me open this. You can also measure the degree at which the stars are, just as this whole thing I just demonstrated to you. And it also contains a compass. Hold on, let me put it flat so that you can see it. Okay? Maybe that's what Helen of Troy invented, and maybe that's why it was so controversial over so many years. And so when people say, well, astrology is nonsense, well, you know what? This is the Farmer's Almanac for 2019. It can be found in every Home Depot across the whole United States. And farmers have been using the almanacs forever. And it is full of weather information and planetary system, astrologic zodiac information. And when to plant is also based off of all the symbols that are used in astrology and astronomy. So you can't separate sciences. They all exist and coexist together. And we need to learn to do the same. So God bless all of you and enjoy this beautiful weather when it's out there. Take care.